Well, it's been an extraordinary week when it comes to anti-Semitism in Australia. You had the ABC sack Sydney morning radio fill-in Antoinette Lattouf for her long list of anti-Israel postings on social media. She's today filed legal action with the Fair Work Commission over her termination. Also at the ABC, you had them promoting boycotts of Israeli businesses on TikTok without any kind of critical thought or dissenting views.
Do you notice anything about this fridge? There's no Coke, Fanta or Sprite, and that's a very deliberate choice. Oz is one of many people taking part in the Palestinian-led boycott divestment scheme, which is a movement that lists brands that supporters of Palestinians are discouraged from buying from because they have some sort of tie to Israel, according to BDS. So it's hard to tell how much of a financial impact this movement makes on brands. But organisers say changing sentiment among customers is powerful in itself.
There was a school in Adelaide that painted a mural featuring the genocidal Palestinian chant "From the river to the sea," which of course means eliminate Israel and the Jews. You had these numpties in Melbourne protesting against Christmas.
Idiots ruining Christmas.
But here is the pièce de résistance. The Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras has now written to the Prime Minister calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. The people whose sexuality is outlawed in Gaza want a ceasefire. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Nick Cater, Senior Fellow at the Menzies Research Centre. Now, in this letter, Nick, they write that they support actions that promote peace and the preservation of human life, and that Sydney Mardi Gras was born in 1978 by a brave group of activists that at their core were driven by the mission that every person should be treated equally and that we all have the right to live freely and safely. I mean, the irony is off the charts here.
I know, Caleb. I mean, you need to be a very brave activist to set up a gay liberation movement in Gaza under Hamas. I don't believe that there was a gay and lesbian Mardi Gras there, not as far as I know. I mean, in fact, to come out as gay in Gaza and indeed in the West Bank, although the situation isn't quite as bad there, is basically a death sentence because there's no, violence against homosexuals is condoned, and there are brutal examples of that. Whereas, on the other hand, you know, all the things that give Sydney such a vibrant and colourful gay and lesbian scene and the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras and all that sort of stuff, all that comes from the Western civilisation, our belief in freedom, individual freedom, and our belief in tolerating people, providing they don't hurt anybody else. All those things are products of Western civilisation, the very thing that Israel represents in that region. And these people apparently oppose that. It's no logic whatsoever. And if they had their way and Israel was pushed off the map, then that would be a very nasty place indeed for gay and lesbian people.
Oh, it's just utterly bizarre. I mean, Israel, every time they do a list of, the safest places for gay people to live in the world, Israel's always in the top 10 list. It's one of the most liberal nations on earth. So the fact that these people would be, we need a ceasefire, we've got to protect Gaza, is just very strange. I mean, I know all of these pro-Palestinian people are very keen on boycotts. Well, I would say to people, boycott the Sydney Mardi Gras next year. I know there are lots of members of the gay community who are outraged by this, because it's like, for goodness sake, chickens don't vote for KFC and turkeys don't vote for Christmas, but queers vote for Gaza.
I was holding off using the turkeys don't vote for Christmas line because it's become a bit of a cliche, but I guess, it is December 22nd, so I'll let you get away with that one.
Exactly. Now, the ICC, the top cricket organisation in the world, has charged Usman Khawaja last night for wearing a black armband that he claimed was for personal bereavement. Now he's challenging the ICC for the right to show support for Palestinians on the cricket field. We remember he wanted to wear those shoes that said all lives are equal. Have a look at what he had to say today.
Being reprimanded for wearing a black armband, which the ICC asked me on day 2 what it was for. I told it was for a personal bereavement. I will be asking them and contesting that they make it fair and equitable for everyone. I don't have any agendas other than trying to shine a light on what I feel really passionately, really strongly about. I'm trying to do it in the most respectful way as possible. what I wrote in my shoes, I made sure that I didn't want to segregate different parts of the population, religious beliefs, communities. Hence why I've kept religion out of this. When I'm looking at my Instagram and I'm seeing kids, innocent kids, videos of them dying, passing away, that's what's hit me the hardest.
So he says he wore the black armband for a reason of personal bereavement, but he did it directly after he was told he couldn't wear these shoes that had written on it in the colours of the Palestinian flags, "All lives are equal." I mean, what is this personal bereavement? Does he seriously believe that the ICC and everyone else didn't think it was a statement about Palestine?
Well, he gave the game away, didn't he, when he said he gets his news from Instagram? That's his first mistake, right? That's not a good place to get balance. Look, this is probably a controversial statement to make on Sky News, but I think Instagram is even less reliable than ABC News.
Oi, blimey, Charlie. Well, if you're looking at the ABC on Instagram, then it's like that's double trouble.
Oh, that is just hopeless. That is hopeless. But, you know, I mean, he gets his news from Instagram and he gets his understanding of history from slogans, basically. I mean, it's just slogan after slogan. I doubt that he's read much about the history of Israel, about the history of Palestine, about the nuanced, very nuanced morality of that world. You know, it takes a lifetime of reading to even begin to grasp a complex situation like Israel and Palestine. I doubt that he's done that. I doubt that he's done it. We don't expect him to. He's a cricketer, and we'd rather he just got on playing cricket, I think.
And he's very bloody good at it. Just stick to your knitting, mate. Now, I mentioned before this business about not sending a warship to the Red Sea. Peter Dutton has now lashed Labor for not sending it off. He said it takes a lot of effort with a special blend of weakness and incompetence for our Prime Minister to turn his back on our closest ally, a decision that could only be welcomed by Hamas, a listed terrorist organisation. I mean, surely you've got to know you're doing something wrong when Hamas puts out a video from one of its senior leaders saying, "Australia, we salute you."
Well, there's a clue here, isn't there, Caleb, that Hamas and China have both celebrated this decision. And that shows that what Richard Marles and the Albanese government don't seem to get, that this is a joined-up problem. This is the axis of evil. Iran, Russia, and their proxies like China and so forth. China and their proxies like Hamas against civilization, basically, and we have to recognise that. And here's the thing: Richard Marles says, "Well, we can't send a ship there because we'd take attention away from what we've got to do in our own region." Sure, we've got to look after our own region. We've got to protect the South China Sea. But look, British and French ships are there with us. They send their ships out to help us protect the South China Sea because they know that we need international solidarity against this axis of evil. So that's exactly why we should be finding a ship, patching up the holes and getting it off to the Red Sea quick smart.
100%. And look, China doesn't seem to be too worried that we're hanging around to go into the South China Sea, do they? Nick Cater, Merry Christmas and thank you so much for your time, mate.